Before everything turns into nightmares, let's take a little detour to understand how we got there. So guys, even if I talk most of the time about Marvel and DC Universe, today I wanted to share with you the full story of Stranger Things in one video. This is Mike. He lives in the 80s in Hawkins, a small quiet town lost in the middle of nowhere. In life, he has two passions, annoying his sister Nancy and especially role-playing games. One evening, after a game of their favorite games, Dungeons & Dragons, the boys separate to go home. On the way back, one of them, Will Byers, comes face to face with a really weird silhouette. From a distance, it's impossible to recognize anything human. And you want to know the scariest thing? The thing follows him. Once home, he realizes that his family's not there. He is far from being reassured. So he goes to his cabin, the only place where he can put his hand on a gun, but it's already too late. The next morning, Will is nowhere to be found. So his brother Jonathan and his mother Joyce are very worried. She goes to see Hopper, the sheriff of the city, to explain the situation to him. But since nothing serious happens to Hawkins, the policemen are huge unemployed. Once in the office, Hopper reassures Joyce. According to him, when a child disappears, there is a 99% chance that he will be found at one of his parents. He therefore thinks that Will may be at his father's in Indianapolis. So the policeman begins to investigate. He searches the forest, interrogates all his friends, but unfortunately, he does not go in the right direction because the problems are much closer than he imagines. He is in town and especially in Hawkins' laboratory. Inside, we find Dr. Brenner. He leads experiments around a really strange portal, and he is ready to do anything to find a mysterious girl who escaped. In town, Will's disappearance is so worrying that the case becomes priority number one. The rest of the gang is determined to find him. Mike, Lucas, and Dustin the Goat go on an expedition in the forest to try to locate him. But on the way, they come face to face with the girl that Dr. Brenner is looking for. He discovers that her name is 11 and decides to hide her in Mike's house. Very quickly, they understand two things. The first, she is in danger, and the second, she knows Will. When her mother arrives, Mike has no choice. He hides his new friend in the closet. She finds herself alone in the dark, and bad memories resurface. Through a flashback, we learn that she was used as a guinea pig in the laboratory, and it's not for nothing. 11 has powers of telepathy and telekinesis. She then reveals to the boy that Will is in danger. His disappearance is therefore much more worrying than expected. Especially in Hawkins, the unexplained absences follow. There is also the case of Barbara, Nancy's best friend. She accompanies her friend to a party at Steve's, a popular guy from high school, and she can't understand why Nancy is in love with him. And since the atmosphere is a little tense between the two, Barbara decides to stay alone on her side. But unfortunately for her, she is teleported to an alternate world where a monster devours her. On her side, Joyce becomes completely paranoid. She installs garlands absolutely everywhere in the house, convinced that her son is trying to communicate with her and that he is very close. And the craziest thing is that she is right. It looks like something is moving in the room without really being there. But in the meantime, Hopper and the police find the boy's body at the bottom of a lake. When the news falls, his friends are devastated. Joyce simply refuses to believe it and goes for a straight face, especially when she sees her sitting on her couch with an axe in her hand. On her side, 11 continues to say that she knows where Will is, but no one believes her until she proves it. Thanks to his powers, we hear the boy singing in a talkie-walkie. But Will doesn't hear the band, so to get in touch with him, you need a much more powerful radio. And that's good, because there is one in the audio-visual club of the school. Once there, they go into the room, but their teacher, Mr. Clark, crosses them in the corridors and insists that they attend a ceremony in Will's memory. Unfortunately for them, it goes very badly. They get confused with the noise of the school, laughing at Will during his tribute. So to take revenge, 11 uses his powers on one of them, and he ends up getting spat on. After that, they finally go to the radio and manage to capture a conversation between Will and Joyce. For the first time, she speaks directly to her son. It looks like he's stuck behind a wall as if he were in a parallel dimension. That means he's alive, which is reassuring, but trapped somewhere between two worlds, which is less reassuring. In high school, Nancy worries a lot about Barbara, but Steve doesn't care at all. So she gets closer to Jonathan, and together they investigate the disappearance of her friend. Because in the photos, he spots a rather strange silhouette and no face. Meanwhile, Hopper begins to have serious doubts too. He realizes that there are really weird things in the National Laboratory. He then checks Will's body at the legislative doctor and understands that it's a fake back at Mike's. The boys understand that there is an alternative version of their city, the upside down world. So Dustin has a genius idea. He notices that the compasses are out of order due to a magnetic field disturbance. So if he follows the direction of the needles, he could come across a portal that leads directly to the upside down world. But 11 sabotages their mission because she's afraid to go back there. It's proof that she knows a lot more than the boys. Lucas wants to get her out of the group, and Mike continues to defend her. So they argue and everyone separates. Shortly after that, Nancy and Jonathan go into the forest to look for what caused Barbara's disappearance. Exploring, Nancy finds an opening to the upside-down world. She then decides to go in to see what it is, but she's scared to death and comes face to face with a terrifying creature, the Gorgon demon. Fortunately for her, Jonathan gets her out of there and saves her life. The next day, 11 is alone and begins to do anything with her powers. By doing this, she is clearly in danger because the scientists can find her very easily. So the boys reconcile. Lucas goes to the lab to try to get Will back in the portal, while Dustin and Mike go in search of 11. But trying to find her, they come face to face with the college brutes. They clearly want to take revenge for what happened during Will's ceremony. They then threaten Dustin with a knife and force Mike to throw himself from the top of a cliff. He has to obey, so he jumps. But 11 just in time to save him thanks to her power. As she used her powers a lot, she gets exhausted and ends up fainting. In this state, she has a vision of her past at the time when she served as a guinea pig in the lab. We then discover that she was locked in isolation boxes that allowed her to see things from a distance. During one of these experiments, she finds herself facing a Gorgon demon. And it is at this moment that we understand that it is she who accidentally opened the portal to the world upside down. So after this revelation, they all decide to go home to rest. But the monsters are far from being the only threat because at the same time, Lucas contacts his friends. Agents leave the lab and start chasing. 11 Mike's house is completely encircled by the government. The children then run away by bike and find refuge in a dump. But very quickly, a helicopter begins to fly over the area, so they all hide in an old bus to escape it. The place is quickly surrounded and men can attack them at any time. For his part, Hopper continues to follow 11's trail since he discovered that Will's body was a fake. He allies himself with Joyce, Jonathan, and Nancy, and then ends up finding the children just in time to save them. Once reunited, he decides to go in search of Will. He then makes an isolation box in the school's gym so that 11 can locate him in the world upside down. Inside, she discovers Barbara's body, but above all, she manages to locate Will. He is hidden in his cabin, but his condition is critical. He won't last long. So Joyce and Hopper go to the National Laboratory. They want to cross the portal to save Will. Only the place is Giga protected and they are directly arrested. But in reality, all this was part of their plan because they have a deal with the scientists. If they can enter the world upside down to save Will, he promises not to reveal anything about what they discovered. Brenner agrees because he is convinced that they will die there and that they will never be able to reveal the secrets of his experiments. For their part, Jonathan and Nancy also want to take action. They are at the Byers and prepare an attack against the monster. And since it's a carnivorous beast, he attracts it with blood and stands ready to intervene, except that Steve beats up the intruder. Nancy and him are always supposed to be together, and he chooses the worst time to explain himself to her. They find themselves facing the Gorgon demon. While he was about to finish it, the beast disappears. But that doesn't mean they got it. The creature simply returned to his world to escape a certain death. During this time, the children are totally isolated, and the lab agents encircle the whole school. This time, they can no longer escape, so 11 eliminates several soldiers, but the blood still attracts the Gorgon demon. The monster comes out of the world upside down because he is on the trail of new prey. Thanks to this diversion, Joyce and Hopper manage to find Will, safe and sound. They will finally be able to bring him home. In the real world, the boys are in great danger, and 11 is exhausted and no one can help them. While everything seems lost, she uses her last strength to face the monster one last time and makes it explode. Then in a flash, she disappears with him. A month later, everything seems to be back in order. Or almost, because Will is starting to spit out quite strange slurs. About a year after all these events, the boys resume their habits and continue to play together in the arcade room. But one day, someone beats their best score. This player is called Max. It's news at school and she arrived with her brother Billy. Barely arriving in town, they already attract the attention of everyone. But the biggest changes happen with the Byers because Joyce gets in a relationship with Bob. As for Will, he spends a lot of time in the lab to perform tests. Since the mysterious disappearance of Dr. Brenner, a new doctor is in charge. He tries to help the boy who still has visions of the world upside down. In addition to taking care of him, the doctor also leads some weird experiments. The portal is still open, so he burns it regularly to prevent it from becoming a threat. But everything that comes from the world upside down is not necessarily bad because 11 is back. Since her confrontation with the demon Gorgon, Hopper has become her adoptive father in secret. She lives hidden in a cabin at the bottom of the woods and the sheriff teaches her a lot of things since she can't go to school. Quite the opposite of the boys because they find their routine. But an event comes to shake it all up. Halloween. Dustin and Lucas want to take advantage of it to invite Max to join their band to spend the evening together. I'm not afraid to say it. They fall in love with her. In fact, they are right because she really looks like the cool girl from high school with her big brother Billy. On the other other hand, what they don't know is that he is completely crazy, ultra-violent, and unpredictable. She then agrees to go candy hunting with the group, which surprises the boys a lot. By the way, they are not the only ones to have fun, because Nancy is also going to a party, and she still feels bad because of Barbara's disappearance. So she tries to forget all her problems and alcohol and goes for a ride. She definitely goes with Steve because he forbids her to talk about what happened to her friend. And in truth, I can understand it. If she does that, the government will kill her without hesitation. And a little later, Will confides in Mike. He tells him his visions of the world upside down. In his nightmares, a huge creature, a kind of gigantic shadow, seems to be watching. It's so terrifying that he starts to doubt and wonders if it's all true or just in his head, and he's right to have doubts. The next day, Dustin finds a creature at home. He quickly attaches himself to it and calls it Dart. Once at school, he introduces it to the whole gang. No one knows what it is. It doesn't look like any known animal, except that by seeing that, Will understands that it's the lemurs that were spitting, so it must come from the world upside down. In addition, the thing grows so fast that it ends up escaping, so they all rush to look for it. Dustin finds it first inside the toilets, but since he's already attached to it, he hides it under his cap and makes his friends believe that he didn't find it. It's super irresponsible because he still doesn't know what it is, and it grew at an incredible speed. Meanwhile, Will finds himself alone and begins to have a new vision. This one lasts longer than usual because it runs a great danger, except that this time, he's tired of running and wants to face the monster. Unfortunately for him, it doesn't work at all. The thing catches it and penetrates inside him. In reality, his friends are panicked because it looks like he has a simple crisis. Joyce arrives on site to try to save him, but panics in turn. Finally, Will opens his eyes, but very quickly, his mother understands that he's not really himself. The boy can't even explain how he feels. So he starts drawing to send messages to Hopper and Joyce. When you put together the scribbles, it strangely looks like climbing plants. So Hopper has an idea. He understands Will's message and leaves the buyer's house to go into the city's fields. While digging under infected plants, he discovers a gigantic network of tunnels linked to the world upside down. But as he works all the time, he almost forgets that he has a daughter. On his side, 11 gets bored, so she decides to search the cabin in which she is hidden. At one point, she puts her hand on a cardboard, then discovers secret documents about her past and learns the truth about her true identity. The shock is huge. So after that, she decides to run away to join her mother. Once in front of the house, a woman welcomes her and explains to her that she is unable to speak. So 11 tries another approach. She enters her mind and sees another little girl. And what she discovers in these flashbacks intrigues her so much that she decides to find her. On her side, Nancy always wants to reveal what she knows about the world upside down. She then talks to Jonathan and they both go to see Murray, a little crazy investigator, but very intelligent. Murray is clear. If he tells the truth as it is, no one will believe him. So he decides to modify the story a little and invent a more credible version. A scandal around a toxin that escaped from the lab, and that would have caused the death of Nancy's best friend. Barbara is not the only victim of the world upside down. Hopper is also in danger. By digging, he fell under the fields and failed to come back to the surface. Caught in the trap by lions, he may die if no one intervenes. Fortunately for him, the buyers noticed his absence. So he goes on a search with the people of the lab and arrives just in time to save him. He frees everyone and starts burning everything. But in doing so, he directly injures Will, who is in crisis again. The scientists of the lab then urgently take him to the laboratory. When he wakes up, he is completely connected to the world upside down. So if he destroys the portal, Will die too. Meanwhile, Dustin and Steve prepare a trap to get rid of Darth. Since they discovered that the creature comes from the world upside down, the situation has worsened. Darth escaped from Dustin. Now he is even bigger and even bigger. He is almost the size of a dog or even a wolf. It has become a real threat for everyone, so he must be eliminated at all costs. But let's go back to the plan of the goat. His strategy is simple. He wants to attract Darth with meat, pour gasoline on it, then set it on fire once he starts eating it to burn it alive. Once night falls, nothing happens as planned. Several demogorgons appear, and no one expected it. It is at this moment that they understand that Darth is not the only monster. Because there are several, they are about to be devoured, but strangely, the monsters ignore them and leave. This is where we understand. Everything comes from Will, who is no longer aware of what he is doing. He is now controlled by the monster and is used as a spy in the real world. Through him, all the demogorgons are guided to the laboratory to take revenge for all the evil that scientists have done to the world upside down. At the same time, Eleven is on the track of the girl she saw in her her mother's visions. Her investigation leads her to a big city where she meets a young girl with supernatural powers like her. This sister has slightly different abilities than Eleven's. Basically, she can create illusions. She lives with a small group that she considers like her family and offers Eleven to join them, which she accepts, and for a short while the young girl finds her place among them, but she quickly realizes that the gang leads a dangerous life. They commit crimes and are even searched by the police, so she decides to leave and return to Hawkins to help her friends because she feels that a danger threatens them there. Meanwhile, in the laboratory, it is total chaos. The monster that controls Will attracts all the Demogorgons from the world upside down and begins to send the places. So to avoid that, Joyce abducts his son, and as if that were not enough, the current jumps. Impossible to open the doors without electricity, so the little friend of Joyce proposes to go and restore all that. So he leaves alone and manages to reach the control room. Thanks to him, all the doors of the lab can finally be opened. But on the way back, he is spotted by a Demogorgon. He tries to flee, but it's already too late. While everyone is about to leave, he sees him die in front of their eyes without being able to do anything. Outside the lab, Jonathan and Nancy find a part of the group and arrive just in time to save them. For his part, Hopper meets the others and makes them get in his car to escape the creatures. After that, they all take refuge in the buyer's emergency room. Once safe, the boys understand that Will is under the control of the Shadow Monster, a solution to defeat him. To begin with, you have to deprive Will of all landmarks so that the monster can no longer know where he is. No more landmarks, no more links with the creature, because without these information, it is blind and unable to send the Demogorgons on the attack. So he covers the buyer's cabin with white sheets, wakes Will up, and holds him under a light to prevent the monster from locating the place. Despite the fact that he is completely possessed, Will manages to transmit a coded message. You have to close the portal. But just at that moment, the phone rings, and that's enough for the mental flasher to understand that Will is at home. Result, the creatures rush straight to the house, so everyone prepares to fight, ready to defend themselves. When suddenly a body of Demogorgon is projected through the window, the door opens by itself. The gang holds their breath and waits to fight a new monster. But instead, it is Eleven who reappears, ready to help them. After the reunion, Mike is angry with Hopper. He blames him for hiding Eleven all this time, and as if that was not enough, barely back, she must already close the laboratory portal. They then establish a plan, then split into several groups to carry it out. Some go to Hopper's hidden cabin to take care of the mental flasher inside Will. And how are you going to tell me? Well, it's simple. Since the monster hates heat, they will heat the room to the maximum to force him to get out of the boy's body. Hopper and Eleven go to the laboratory to close the portal, and the youngest have only one instruction to follow: stay at home. Finally, they decide to disobey the adults and to attract the demo dogs under the fields to let Eleven and Hopper act quietly. Except that things get complicated. Billy is looking for Max and ends up landing at the buyers to check if she is there. The tone rises between him and the others, and they end up fighting. Steve is in a bad state, but fortunately for him, Max manages to master his brother with a syringe filled with sleeping pills. Following this, the gang takes the opportunity to steal his car from him and rushes to the entrance of the tunnel that Hopper had discovered once in the infected underground. Their mission is simple: burn everything on their way. So the scientists understand that there is only one thing missing to get there: a better location. So they make a radical decision: build a secret laboratory under the city of Hawking. Why there? Because given everything that happened, the city is already linked and closer to the world upside down, and the diversion is super effective. Already the mental flagellum, which definitively heals Will's body. Then the demo dogs abandon the portal to go defend the tunnels attacked by the others. On his side, Eleven rethinks all her bad memories to gather his strength. And it works. She manages to close the gap. The link with the world upside down is finally cut. The victory is total. All this is finally over. A month later, Hawking's laboratory closes its doors, following the revelations of Nancy Emery. Eleven still has to keep her powers secret, but she can finally live normally. She even goes to the winter ball where she shares a dance with Mike, while Max and Lucas get closer too. But much more important things than love stories await them. A year later, the Russians try in secret to reopen a portal to the world upside down. Their machines consume a lot of energy, but they are almost there. Despite all their efforts, the Russians cannot open it. So the scientists understand that there is only one thing missing to get there: a better location. So they make a radical decision: build a secret laboratory under the city of Hawking. Why there? Because given everything that happened, the city is already linked and closer to the world upside down. So it would be much easier to do their experiment there. Meanwhile, the children have grown up. They have become normal teenagers. They go to the new mall, go to the shops, eat ice cream. In short, the beautiful life. During their session, Will has a bad premonition. He feels a presence, as if someone something from the world upside down had returned. And he's right. The mental flash is still there, but in another form. Even if 11 closed the portal, he survived. He is now hiding in an abandoned factory, attracts all the rats of the city, then kills them to regain strength. At the same time, the guy goes on vacation. He announces to everyone that he has a girlfriend named Susie and that he would like to introduce her to them with the radio he built. So the others follow him, then set up the radio to communicate with her, except that he does not understand anything. Nobody believes him, and everyone leaves. And that's when everything changes. Instead of hearing the voice of his girlfriend, Dustin catches a coded message in Russian. A little later, Billy passes right next to the hideout of the mental flash without even knowing it. He is supposed to go to a meeting with Mike's mother, but on the road, he has an accident. He does not stop far from an abandoned factory, goes down to take a look at his car, and there, without warning, a tentacle comes out of nowhere, then attacks him. He is dragged by force inside the building, but strangely, the monster releases him. After this event, Billy is no longer himself, and we understand that something is wrong with him. He feels so bad that he even starts to hallucinate. So to calm down, he decides to take a shower, but a swimming teacher surprises him. She worries for him and asks him if he's okay, but since Billy is no longer himself, he assumes her, takes her away, then brings her back to the monster. The next day, 11 argues with Mike, so she starts to get closer to Max, and very quickly, they become inseparable. They even spend a pajama party together and use 11's powers as a toy to spy on people from a distance. At one point, we decide to do this on Billy, but the vision she has is all but normal. She hears screams. In short, something is wrong. The two girls are worried, so they return to Max's and decide to search the house to see if something strange is happening. While searching, they put their hands on a bloodstained whistle, which puts them directly on the track of the swimming teacher who disappeared earlier in the day. So Max and 11 decide to go see her parents to see if everything is okay. Once there, she finds her still alive and right next to Billy. Even if the boy's behavior is weird because he's nice when he's usually not, everything seems normal. The swimming teacher is there. She speaks. She says she's okay, so the girls don't ask any more questions and leave, except that in reality, Billy is clearly possessed. Even worse, he infected his colleague. Together, they get rid of the girls' parents and deliver them to the monster under the factory. On their side, the boys realize that Will is still connected to the world upside down. They then understand that the mental flagellum is back and immediately trigger a red code. After that, he allies himself with the girls to set up a trap for Billy in order to check if he is under the monster's grip. They then lock him in a sauna and test his reaction. With the heat, Billy literally shoots a lead, then ends up freeing himself of strength. 11 is the only one who can hold him back, so a fight breaks out between the two. The fight is tight, but she manages to get him to run away justly thanks to her powers. The gang took a huge risk, but it's bad for good because it's thanks to that they understand that Billy is indeed under the grip of the mental flagellum. Nancy and Jonathan also begin to have doubts about what's going on in town. They are interns in a small newspaper, but no one takes them seriously. Yet they come across a really strange case with completely crazy rats. While investigating, they discover that these animals are actually used as food by the mental flagellum to regain strength. They even pay a visit to a witness, but the situation quickly degenerates because she starts eating in the hangar before being transported to the hospital. Between Billy, the swimmer, and now this old lady, it proves that there are several people possessed in town. Meanwhile, Dustin decides to go see Steve to tell him about the encrypted message he intercepted. The former high school king has changed a lot. He now works in an ice cream shop, and he has to put up with his colleague Robin, who spends her time whining. But despite all this, she is very smart because it is thanks to her that they managed to decrypt the coded message. We have our first sentence. Little by little, they realize that the message is much more than a simple code. It's a kind of treasure hunt. Each sentence refers to shops in the mall. Following the clues, they end up coming across an ultra-secured company. Way too much to be normal. Clearly, something weird is going on. He may be hiding a secret base or something like that. Robin then proposes a plan to infiltrate. If they can't go through the door, they can maybe go through the ventilation ducts. But the problem is that it's way too narrow. So they call Erica, Luca's little sister, to slip inside. She sneaks into the duct, arrives in a warehouse, then opens the door to the others so that they can regroup. Once inside the warehouse, they search the place and come across strange packages filled with chemical products. But very quickly, they realize that the whole room is actually an elevator. They suddenly take them to the depths, and find themselves in a huge hidden base under the city with no way out. And since they don't have a choice, they have to keep moving forward. Along the way, they discover that the base is filled with Russian soldiers armed to the teeth. And that's not all. They end up finding test rooms where the Soviets try to open a portal to the upside-down world. By the way, the children are not the only ones to be aware of the Russians at Hawkins. On his side, Joyce starts to worry because her magnets fall all alone from the fridge for no reason. reason, so she feels that something abnormal is happening. So she goes to see the professor of science and tells him about a possible disruption of the magnetic field. And since Joyce is not the kind to keep her arms crossed, especially when it comes to secret experiments, she goes to investigate. She then embarks with Hopper to search the ruins of the old laboratory of Hawking's. Unsurprisingly, there is nothing at all, or almost, because the place is supposed to have been abandoned for almost a year. But as he was about to leave, Hopper hears a noise, so he approaches and is violently attacked by an unknown. A little later, the sheriff remembers having already seen this biker at the town hall, so he goes back to see the mayor of Hawking's to ask him who he is, except that the mayor lies to him. So Hopper loses patience, hits him, and the mayor ends up saying everything he knows about the unknown. We learn that the biker works for the new mall and that he wants to buy land to enlarge it. Following their mini investigation, they end up in front of a house bought by the Soviets. Inside, they discover scientists who work discreetly with the biker and who turn out to be a swindler. The guy is a real killing machine, so Joyce and Hopper have no choice. They run away with the scientists to help them understand the situation. The only problem is that they don't speak Russian, so they go to Murray's, the only person in the area able to translate for them. The scientist doesn't really have a choice. He has to help them because if his colleagues find him, he'll turn out to be a traitor, so he reveals all the plans of the military base and even tells them about the portal to the upside-down world. Hearing this, Joyce and Hopper are super worried, so they want to find their child as soon as possible. Meanwhile, on Dustin's side, things get complicated because their group is spotted by the soldiers. Steve and Robin are then captured while Dustin and Erica manage to escape in the ventilation ducts. The Russians can't understand how they got here, so they want answers, and they do it in a strong way. They drug Steve and Robin, interrogate them, and try to make them confess who they work for. Fortunately for them, Dustin arrives just in time to save them. The group even manages to escape the elevator and climb back to the surface. But they don't get out of the business. The soldiers are in their trunks and chase them through the mall. Meanwhile, Nancy and Jonathan go back to see the old lady at the hospital. Since she is linked to the mental flagellum, they hope she can lead them to him, except that their enemy is waiting for them. As soon as they arrive at the hospital, they find themselves facing humans who block their way. They even end up merging together to become a giant flesh monster. Nancy has no way out and passes away, but Eleven beats the creature quite easily. Despite all this, they still don't know where the mental flagellum is hiding. It's a return to the starting box. So we decide to explore Billy's mind. She plunges into her memories, then hopes to find a clue. Once in her memories, we finally understand why he is so violent with Max. It's simply because he was separated from his mother and grew up with a very violent father. Exploring her memory, Eleven comes across a very recent memory linked to a factory, then understands that it's there that the mental flagellum is hiding. But what she doesn't know is that this vision works in both directions. Billy sees it too. Now the monster knows exactly where it is and will soon arrive. They barricade themselves in the house, but the creature does not waste time. It rushes straight at them and violently attacks. Eleven manages to stop it, which allows them to escape by car, but her leg is seriously injured. They then urgently stop at a station to treat her, while Lucas makes him full of ultra-powerful fireworks. After that, they rush to the mall to find the others on site. The Russians have already taken control of the place. All exits are monitored. Dustin and the others are about to be captured. But while everything seems lost, Eleven's group arrives just in time and saves their lives. On their side, Joyce and Hopper look for the children at the friend party, but they end up being spotted and the places are encircled by KGB agent. The killer arrives, then takes the opportunity to shoot him a bullet in the heart. Fortunately, Hopper takes action. He attracts the killers to an amusement park. Asim, the first, steals his gun from him, then manages to neutralize the most dangerous. Just after, he steals a talkie-walkie and intercepts a children's communication at the mall. Thanks to that, he quickly finds them in Starcourt. But the situation is critical. Eleven is injured, and his powers no longer work. So if they want to defeat the mental plague, they have to close the portal that the streets have reopened under the city. So the adults disguise themselves as soldiers to infiltrate the enemy base. Then Dustin guides them from a distance with his homemade radio. But time is running out. The others are stuck in the shops. The mental plague has returned stronger than ever. And without Eleven's powers, they are in great danger. So the rest of the group decides to create a diversion to attract the monster away from the mall. In the base, Joyce and Hopper must recover 2 keys to stop the machine, but an ultra-complex code blocks the safe. Fortunately, Dustin has an idea. He calls his girlfriend, who is super good at math, to ask her the answer, but Susie does not intend to give it to him so easily. She wants something in return, that they sing their favorite song, so Dustin is forced to sing, and I'm not afraid to say it, it's one of the best scenes in the whole series. Once the song is over, Susie finally gives him the code, and the others open the safe without a problem. With the keys in hand, they rush to the machine room to close the portal. And they're almost there, but at the last moment, the killer comes back, so Hopper faces him right next to the portal in a last fight to the death. Time is running out. Max, Mike, and 11 try to escape, but Billy catches up with them. He's been waiting for this moment for a long time. He starts by beating 11 and counts the data to the mental flagellum, who has returned to the mall to help Billy. The whole group arrives to stop him. Lucas uses his fireworks to distract the monster, but it won't last long, and 11 is powerless. So she tries another approach. She talks to Billy. She reminds him of all his childhood memories, all the good times he thought he had forgotten, and it works. Billy regains control, rebels against the mental flagellum, and sacrifices himself like a hero. Just after, Joyce has no choice. She triggers the explosion that destroys the machine, even though Hopper is right next to it. Following this battle, the mall is completely destroyed and Hopper has disappeared, but the link with the upside-down world is finally cut off. 8 months later, 11 moved with Joyce and Will to California. Since the Battle of Starcourt, she has totally lost her powers. In her new high school, she is an easy prey because a group of students harass her. In addition, Mike and her can no longer see each other as often as before. Apart from Will, she has almost no one to count on. And by the way, even Hawking is not happy. Lucas moves away from his friends more and more, and instead he hangs out with the popular high school athletes, such as Jason. As for Max, she is still digesting the death of Billy, so the whole gang is separated. Dustin and Mike feel more alone than before. Fortunately for them, there is Hellfire. It's a club of Dungeons and Dragons run by Eddie, a high school student who has a lot of double. He's weird but not mean at all. Despite that, he gets into a funny business. Jason's little friend has big migraines and super scary visions, so she goes to see Eddie, but when he gets in his camper to get something stronger, she gets violently killed. From the beginning, she was possessed by an evil force from the underworld. Since she dies at his house, Eddie becomes the #1 suspect, and the police is far from being the only thing that threatens him. Jason is furious. He wants to find him himself to kill him, and even thinks that the players of Donjon and Dragon are all members of a sect. The others quickly understand that all this is linked to the underworld. Nancy's even interested in the case, since she is still a journalist. She then questions Eddie's uncle, who tells her about a killer. We understand, thanks to him, that Eddie is not the killer, because a few years ago, a person died exactly the same way as Jason's girlfriend. But the killer is not supposed to be able to act since he is in prison. For their part, the group finds Eddie's hideout and explains everything that happened to Hawkins until now. They even give a name to this new threat, Vecna, but their enemy has a long way to go on them, because another young man is murdered. For his part, Mike clearly chose the worst time to go on a trip. He is not even aware of what is happening in his city, since he joins 11 and the Byers family in California. But even there, they have problems. Already, Joyce receives a ransom request and learns that Hopper survived the explosion. Now the Russians lock him up in a gulag, and a soldier named Enzo wants to exchange him for $40,000. Meanwhile, the younger ones also have a lot of problems. Already, Jonathan does not even know where he is with Nancy, since they have not seen each other for a long time. He does not know if they are still together or separated, but at least he can always count on his friend Hippie to give him advice. Next to that, 11 spends her best night with the boys by rollerblading, but the students who harass her in high school are there too, and they start to make fun of her. So on a fit of anger, she violently hits one of his harassers. In truth, we will not hide her merits. Despite all this, Joyce should stay to help the children, but instead she goes to Russia with Murray to deliver the ransom and try to save Hopper. She leaves the children alone at the worst moment. Shortly after, 11 is arrested by the police because of what she did to her assailant. During the interrogation, she does not know what to say. She seems too suspicious, so the agents decide to send her to a center for minors. But against all odds, Dr. Owens arrives and gets her out of there. Even if the laboratory was closed, he continues his scientific activities and has been looking for 11 for a while. Besides, he knows exactly what is happening to Hawkins. He explains the situation to him and offers him to participate in a new program. This time, it is no longer about experience as before, but a way to help him regain his powers to save his friends, even the whole world. So without hesitation, she accepts the offer. We learn at the same time that all the victims of Vecna had post-traumatic syndromes just like Max. So that means she is in danger and that she is an ideal victim for their enemy. In Russia, Joyce finally arrives at the destination and meets a somewhat creepy passerby. At first glance, he seems rather funny, but it's just a facade. Instead of helping him, he betrays Enzo and plans to keep the ransom for himself alone without respecting the slightest agreement. As a result, soldiers capture and lock up Hopper with his only ally. As for Joyce and Murray, they drug them, and once unconscious, he ties them to his plane, ready to deliver them to the Russians. Meanwhile, 2 agents are sent by Owens to try to protect Mike, Jonathan, and Will. But the Byers' house is quickly encircled by the army because a part of the government thinks that 11 is a threat. So they want to flee the house, but they don't have a car. Fortunately for them, Jonathan's friend arrives just in time with his truck to save them. On their side, Nancy and Robin continue their investigation on Vecna and start questioning Victor Krill, the famous killer whose Uncle Deddy had spoken. Accused of having massacred his wife and children, he has been locked up for years. When the girls question him, he explains his version of the facts. Shortly after their arrival in Hawking, his family began to experience really strange things. They had more and more scary visions, and they were convinced that a demon was haunting their house. One evening, while they were all at the table, the radio turned on by itself. Then, for no reason, his wife and daughter died before his eyes, just like Jason's girlfriend. He almost died too. But at the last moment, he heard his favorite song, and that's what saved him. When the police discovered the scene, they didn't try to understand. They immediately arrested him and charged him with the crime. Thanks to this testimony, Nancy and Robin understand that the only way to escape Vecna is to listen to his favorite music. This allows the victim to hang on to a positive memory and free himself from his hold. And this is information that comes at the right time. Max is aware that she is in great danger, so she goes to Billy's grave to talk to him and try to get better. But dark memories wake up, which triggers Vecna's possession. She is 2 fingers from staying there, until the moment when his friends save her by putting her favorite cassette. Still on the plane, Joyce and Murray are tied up, but he notices that the pilot can't hear them. He is just too focused on his driving, so they take advantage of it and break their bond. Then, thanks to Murray's karate skills, they manage to master the traitor before it's too late. Even better, they force him to cooperate. Like what? Everything is not lost yet. Mike, Will, Jonathan, and his friend also escape at worst and take the road to Nevada to join 11. For his part, we are about to test a brand new isolation case, the Progenina. It's an invention of Dr. Brenner. Yes, apparently he's still alive, and we don't really know how thanks to this machine, 11 will be able to dive back into his memories to try to regain his powers. At Hawking's, Eddie is alone, and in danger, Jason and his henchmen are still in his hole. They are 2 fingers away from finding him in his hideout. It's impossible for the others to come and help him because they are busy exploring the old Krill house in search of Vecna. It is there that the monster hides, but in the world upside down. So Eddie manages as best he can and gets on the boat. But as he is spotted, Jason and one of his friends go after him, except that his friend is also starting to have visions. It's Vecna's next target. Shortly after, the possession starts and his body disappears into the depths of the lake. Under the shock, Jason abandons his hunt for the man. On their side, the whole gang comes back from the Krill house and discovers what happened during their absence. Thanks to the talkie-walkie, they get in touch with Eddie and decide to find themselves in an old plan hidden in Hawking's forest. But on the way, Dustin notices something strange with his compass. When he was looking for their meeting point, it was doing anything as if it were out of order. He then understands that magnetic fields still disturb the needles as with the first portal years earlier. So that means that new doors to the world upside down open at each death. Steve wants to have a clear heart, so he dives where the body of Jason's friend is supposed to be, but instead he discovers a portal and gets sucked into it. Once on the other side, he finds himself in front of bat monsters attacking him. Fortunately, Nancy, Robin, and Eddie arrive just in time to save him. They push the creatures back, but are now stuck in the upside-down world. The only option to get out of it, they have to find another portal to return to the real world. Meanwhile, the others can't even intervene. Police officers surprised them in the middle of the lake and brought them back home to question them. On the other side of the globe in Russia, the situation is just as critical because adults have no way to free Hopper. Enzo is in prison, so no one can negotiate ransom. Murray then improvises a completely crazy plan. He disguises himself as a Russian pilot and makes Joyce pass for his prisoner. Despite this very risky plan, their infiltration works wonderfully. They manage to enter the base and are even allowed to assist in an execution. Among the convicts, there are Hopper and Enzo. They are thrown into an arena with other prisoners and must face a Gorgon demon that the Russians had secretly kept in their base. But Hopper knows the beast well. He uses fire to push it back and allows Enzo to stay alive. Meanwhile, Murray takes advantage of the chaos, kidnaps the director, and takes control of the situation. Thanks to this, he frees Hopper and Enzo, escapes the soldiers, finally regroups, and manages to hide. At the same time, 11 enters the Nina project. In the machine, she remembers all her childhood at Hawking's laboratory, and it's all but happy. We learn in his memories that Dr. Brenner was deliberately favoring 11 so that all the other children hated her. His only ally was a nurse who was in danger just to help him. He even offered him an escape plan and gave him an appointment in front of an aeration grid. It was at that moment that he confessed to him that Brenner had implanted a chip in his skin and that he couldn't escape with her because it was because of that he could be permanently located. So out of kindness, 11 removed his chip with her powers, and that's when she realized that he was like her. In fact, it was the very first, the number one, and from the start, he manipulated her. The chip prevented him from using his powers, and as soon as he had the opportunity, he killed absolutely everyone in the laboratory. But it's weird because his powers look strangely like those of Vecna. Visions then reveal to us that the number 1 is actually Henry Creel, the son of Victor Creel. It means that he was the demon in the house and that he killed his own family when he was a child. His powers are extremely powerful, but 11 managed to defeat him and project him into the upside-down world. Once there, he became the monster we all know, Vecna. In the present, the children disobey the adults. They take their bikes and rush to Eddie's caravan to find the others stuck in the upside-down world. Since Jason's girlfriend died there must be a portal nearby. The others understand it too. So they cross the upside-down world to find the exit. Arrived at destination, they make a rope and throw it through the portal to save the others stuck. Almost everyone managed to escape except Nancy, because Vecna takes control of her mind. Trapped in a terrifying nightmare, she discovers the true intentions of their enemy. If he manages to kill a 4th person, he will be able to open a gigantic breach that will destroy the border between the 2 worlds. Basically, it would be the end of Hawkins, or even the whole world. Inside the prison, Hopper and Joyce discover really horrible experiences. They see that the Russians are trying to recreate a mental flagellum. Fortunately, Enzo spots an exit in the tunnels. He escapes quite easily, even if the soldiers are still in their trunks. Finally, he finds refuge in the pilot's hangar and remains hidden. For his part, 11 wakes up in the secret base. She finally gets out of the isolation box, and her powers are back. She is ready to return to Hawkins and help her friends, but Dr. Brenner doesn't want to. He thinks that 11 is not ready yet and blackmails her. If she leaves now, he will kill Owens. She refuses to obey him, so he uses her in a strong way and lures her with a syringe. At the same time, the army always thinks that she is dangerous, then chooses this precise moment to invade the lab. Brenner takes 11 with him and runs in the desert to try to protect her. But he is shot several times, so he grabs her every time to defend her. We wake up, and the last good action of the doctor allows him to easily destroy the helicopter in his pursuit. Now that she is alone in the desert, she must find a way to go back to Hawkins. Fortunately for her, the others have been on her trail since the beginning and come to get her in a van. Everything is finally ready for the assault on Vecna Steve. Nancy and Robin must attack him directly in the world upside down, more precisely in the Krill's house. This is where he can use his strength, but also where he is the most vulnerable. So to open a passage for them through the bats that protect the area, Dustin and Eddie sacrifice themselves by playing them. Meanwhile, Max sets up a risky diversion. She voluntarily stops listening to his music to attract Vecna to her. She gives herself completely to him and hopes to divert his attention. Besides, Lucas stays by his side, ready to intervene if it ever goes wrong. For their part, Mike and the others make an isolation box so that 11 can enter Max's mind and help him from a distance. But everything goes wrong when Jason lands from nowhere. He attacks Lucas because he protects Eddie and fails everything. In the world upside down, Dustin and Eddie are overwhelmed by the creatures. Dustin ends up bending over, but Eddie stays to save time. He faces alone a cloud of flying monsters. The fight is lost in advance, but he still remains and dies like a hero. And that's not even enough. Steve, Nancy, and Robin are trapped by plants from the world upside down. They are immobilized while Vecna enters Max's head. He is about to kill her, and no one can stop him. No one except 11, who manages to reach Max in his mind just in time. But even she does not weigh the weight. Vecna controls her without difficulty. This is where he reveals the truth to her. From the beginning, he was behind all this. Mental flagellum, monsters, murders, everything came from him. The situation is desperate. Vecna begins to possess Max, and the process is almost over. But at the last moment, 11 finds the strength to get up, fights, and manages to push him back. Meanwhile, in Russia, Hopper and Joyce are always shocked by what they saw. They decide to return to prison to destroy all the horrors created by the Russians, and they did well. The prison is invaded by totally uncontrollable Gorgon demons, but by doing this, they find themselves encircled. While everything seems lost, Murray lands with a flamethrower and makes a carnage. The fire touches the creatures of the world upside down, and as everything is connected, the plants release Steve, Nancy, and Robin. Finally free, they attack their enemy just at the right time, where he is most vulnerable, but unfortunately it's too late. Max's death opens the fourth breach, and a gigantic fault spreads through the Kings. Then the city is literally torn in two. By miracle, 11 manages to bring Max back to life thanks to his powers. But she doesn't wake up. She is in a coma between life and death. A few days later, everyone finds themselves in Hawkins. The city is in ruins. There have been a lot of deaths and injuries, but the group also suffered. And even if Hopper and Joyce's return brings a little hope, peace is short-lived. While 11 finds Hopper, she thought was dead, something terrifying happens. A rain of white particles falls from the sky. It's clear Vecna's plan works. The upside-down world is merging with the real world, and the worst is yet to come.